boys and girls. Welcome again to Poetry Just for You. I have a poem just for you. It's called The Postman. I waited for the postman. He always comes my way and brings letters from a friend who lives far, far away. I didn't see the postman. He must have hurried by. But he left this little postcard. It's the one that just says hi. Oh, look. Here is a lovely postcard. And it says, above the canopy of a forest of tall trees rises a 90-foot-high theater of the IBM Pavilion at the 1964-65 New York World's Fair. Boys and girls, would you like to visit the World's Fair? Well, we'll have to go back in time. Are you ready to fly with me on a magic carpet like Bernie and Lisa? And we can get there in no time at all. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. We've landed at the World's Fair. And we will visit the African Pavilion. And there we may see something quite interesting. Oh, yes, a portrait of Mary McLeod Bethune. This portrait was painted by Mr. Henry Dabbs, and it's hanging in the Afro-American Pavilion at the World's Fair. We can learn a lot about Mary McLeod Bethune, who is now a national hero, an American hero. And if you listen carefully, we will begin the story of Mary McLeod Bethune. But first, I'd like to share with you a little carriage that would have been used during the time that Mary McLeod Bethune lived. And here it is. This carriage was owned by Mrs. Young, my mother, and she lives in Mount Vernon now. Isn't it interesting? Look at the little wheels. And it also collapses if you take the baby out. Come out. And there. It's quite portable.
A progress report from kids with epilepsy.
People still have weird ideas about epilepsy.
They think kids like us can't play sports.
Or get good grades.
Or do lots of other things.
Sometimes it's hard having epilepsy. But now my sisters are controlled. I can do most anything. We want people to know more about kids like us.
Epilepsy. Find out where we are today. Call the Epilepsy Foundation of America, 1-800-EFA-1000.
Go. Welcome back, boys and girls. And now, the story of Mary McLeod Bethune by Ruby L. Radford. Mary McLeod was born in a log cabin near Maysville, South Carolina, on July 10, 1875. Her father and mother had once been slaves. Then, 12 years before Mary was born, President Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. When Granny Sophia first took Mary in her arms, she said, "Thank God, she's born free. Nobody can take her away from us." Sometimes Mama washed clothes for white people in town. One day, when Mary was 7, she helped her mother carry clean wash back to the Wilson house. While Mama took the clothes inside, Mary played with the Wilson girls. They showed her their blue-painted playhouse. Mary held a doll and sat in a little chair. Then she saw an open storybook on the table. "Tell me what those words say," she asked. The oldest girl frowned and snatched the book away. "No," she cried. "Papa said Negroes can't learn to read." Mary was hurt and sad. She ran to find her mother. On the way home, she asked, "Why can't I learn to read?" "You can," Mama answered. "You're just as smart as the Wilson girls, or anybody. But there are no schools for poor black folks like us." Mary began to dream of learning to read. Every Sunday, Pa hitched old Bush to the wagon. Then the family piled in for the 5-mile ride to hear Parson Bowen preach. In the evening, they sat by their fireplace and listened to Granny's tales. She told of faraway Africa, where her grandfather had been a tribal chief. Mary was proud to hear about him, but other stories were sad, especially the ones about how slave traders had captured Granny's mother and brought her to America. Granny taught the family to sing African songs she had learned from her mother. Often Granny held the Bible in her lap. Mary looked inside the book and said, "I wish I could read the words." "You will someday," promised Granny. "Then you can teach others to read." So Mary began to dream of helping others after she learned herself. One day her dream started to come true. A neatly dressed lady came to the edge of the field where the McLeods were picking cotton. Pa and Mama went to speak to her, and Mary followed. "I am Emma Wilson," the lady said. "The Presbyterian Mission Board has sent me to start a school for Negroes." How excited Mary was. It was a happy day when at last she walked the 3 miles to the little school near the railroad tracks. She wore a starched dress and carried a lunch bucket. The school had only backless benches, a stove, and a desk and chair for the teacher. There were few books and no paper and pencils. The children used slates and chalk to write their first lessons. When Mary heard the other children call the teacher Miss Wilson, she had never heard a black person call Miss Wilson before. Then she wondered if someday people might call her Miss McLeod. Mary studied hard and learned fast. She was proud when she could read a few words in the Bible. But school lasted only 3 months. Then Mary had to climb on old Bush again to help plow the fields for spring planting. In the fall, there was a new brick schoolhouse. The mission board had sent more books, paper, and pencils. Mary now learned to read well and to write and add numbers too. Soon people came to ask her to read letters, and friends asked her to add up their grocery bills so that the storekeeper could not charge them too much. In the fall, Pa took the picked cotton to the gin where the seeds were taken out. Mary went with him each time. She watched the scales to see how much the cotton weighed. No one could cheat her father any longer. When Mary was 12, she had learned all Miss Wilson could teach her. She was unhappy to have to go back to the cotton field. But Pa had bought more land for growing cotton, and work was never finished on the McLeod farm. Mary still wanted to learn more so that she could teach others, but her parents had no extra money for sending her away to school. Then in the fall, Miss Wilson came to McLeod cabin again. "I have good news, Mary," she said. "Miss Mary Chrisman, a dressmaker in Denver, Colorado, has sent money to educate a Negro girl." Mary held her breath. "And the mission board has chosen you to go to Scotia Seminary in Concord." "North Carolina," finished Miss Wilson. "Me?" cried Mary. She could hardly believe what she heard. She was so happy she forgot for a moment how poor they were. Then her mother spoke. Somehow, she promised, we'll get you some new clothes. Most of the time, Mary did not wear shoes. She had only 2 dresses, one to wear while the other was being washed. But when her friends heard the good news, they all helped. One gave her cloth for a dress, another gave her a dress to be made over, and others knitted stockings and a shawl. Even the storekeeper sold her shoes at a lesser price. At last, a frightened but happy girl got on the train. Mary had never been away from home before. She carried a paper, a bundle of clothes, and another of lunch. Hours later, the train stopped in Concord.
Your goodness never stops, it continues to point me in the right direction, point me in the right direction. Yeah, yes, you help me love my neighbors as myself, to live for you, totally my heart. Well, you do compel, you keep on blessing me, though I might not be on top, you keep on blessing me. If I'm asking you or not, you keep on blessing me. Everybody, I must tell how you bless me, Jesus, in spite of myself. How you bless me, Jesus, in spite of myself. I don't know how you can still love me after all the things that I've done wrong. You fulfill my every need, yeah, and you let me know that I belong. But I blundered many times and brought shame in you. Whenever it seems like I've lost my way, you point me in the right direction, point me in the right direction. Yes, you help me love my neighbors as myself, to live for you, totally my heart. You do compel, you keep on blessing me, though I might not be on top, you keep on blessing me. If I'm asking you or not, you keep on blessing me. Everybody, I must tell how you bless me, Jesus, in spite of myself. How you bless me, Jesus, in spite of mine. Oh yes, oh yes, you keep on blessing me. If I'm asking you or not, you keep on blessing me. Everybody, I must tell how you bless me, Jesus, in spite of myself. How you bless me, Jesus, in spite of mine. And I want to thank you, yes. You know, I really want to thank you, Jesus. You didn't have to help me, no. Oh, but you turned around and saved me, Jesus. You know, you really didn't have to help me, Lord. You know, you really didn't have to change me, Jesus. Oh. Hey, when I lay down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul you keep. In the morning when I wake, Lord, I thank you for a brand new day. I give my life because Jesus cares, and I know that he'll be there. I give my life because Jesus cares, and I know that he'll be there. Ooh, you know I want to preach to Jesus.
Alcoholism can dissolve marriages, friendships, careers, self-respect. A woman may feel ashamed, try to hide her problem, but alcoholism grows in the dark. Admitting that you have a problem is the first step toward gaining control of it. If you think you or someone you care about has a drinking problem, help is available. Look in the yellow pages under alcoholism. This message is from the Will Rogers Institute, White Plains, New York.
Many things at Scotia Seminary were new to Mary. She slept for the first time on a real bed. She learned to use a fork. At home, they had always eaten with spoons. Everyone was kind and helped Mary learn different ways of living. 7 years later, Mary McLeod was graduated from Scotia. She won a scholarship to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. There, she studied to be a missionary. She had decided she wanted to teach in Africa, but when she finished 2 years later, she was very disappointed. The mission board did not send her to Africa. Instead, Mary went to teach at Haynes Institute in Augusta, Georgia. There were black children in Mary's own town who helped her, who needed help. At Haynes, Mary trained a fine chorus. She taught her pupils the songs she had learned from Granny Sophia. Rich visitors who came to Augusta in the winter enjoyed the circus. They gave money to help the school. Mary did not forget the needs of her family. She sent most of her pay home. Next, Mary was sent to teach at the Kendall Institute in Sumter. It was only a few miles from her home. There she met another teacher, Albertus Bethune. They were married and moved to Savannah. The next year, their son Albert was born. News spread that Mary McLeod Bethune had opened a school for black girls. More pupils came, but only a few could pay. Mrs. Bethune trained a chorus. The Florida tourists enjoyed the music. They came to visit the school and gave money for a better building, new furniture, and more books. On Sundays, the chorus sang for the prisoners at the jail. The gardener gave vegetables and fruit for the pupils. Mary Bethune kept busy with her school all the time. Soon her husband began to say it was a waste of time. After a few years, he went back to South Carolina. Before long, the school had 250 pupils. A larger campus was chosen, and better buildings were built. Now there were many teachers. Mrs. Bethune wrote hundreds of letters to rich people asking help for her school. It was called Bethune College. Over the years, Mary Bethune fought many hard battles for the rights of her people. Once a girl was very ill, but the hospitals were only for white people. Mrs. Bethune begged a white doctor to operate. Later, when she went back to the hospital to see the girl, she found her on a cot on the back porch. Mrs. Bethune was never so angry in her life. She said later, "Even my toes clenched in rage." After, she rented another house and started a hospital for black people. Some of her pupils served as nurses. Again, Mrs. Bethune wrote letters to her rich friends in the North asking help to build a hospital. Enough money came in to build McLeod Hospital. The doctors and nurses cared for the pupils of the school and men hurt in the work camps. During the Great Flood outbreak in 1918, the hospital was filled. In March 1925, Mrs. Bethune's school merged with Cookman Institute, a boys' school. It became Bethune-Cookman College. A chorus still sang in many cities to raise money. Mrs. Bethune worked hard to improve the life of her people. There were many wrongs to be made right. Black people could not stay in hotels with white people or eat in the same restaurants. Black people had to sit in the back seats of trains and buses. It was hard for them to get good jobs. Mrs. Bethune spoke and wrote about these wrongs. She became an important civil rights leader working for her people. The frightened little girl who first rode a train when she was 12 now travels far and wide. Presidents asked her advice, for she knew what black people needed. In 1930, President Herbert Hoover invited Mrs. Bethune to the White House. She spoke on Negro rights at a conference of child health and protection. In 1936, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was asked her to take charge of Negro affairs in the National Youth Administration. But Mrs. Bethune knew there were many thousands of black people who still needed to help her. She went to Washington. Mrs. Bethune worked hard at her job. Many times she and President Roosevelt talked about plans to help black people. Once Mrs. Bethune was upset about unfair treatment of her people. From her office, she telephoned the president. He asked her to come to the White House that evening. The president greeted her. "Come in, Mrs. Bethune. I am always glad to see you." "Why?" she asked. "I always have problems." "Because you always come for others, not yourself," the president said. Many people knew about the good work Mrs. Bethune did, and she made many friends in Washington. The president's mother and his wife Eleanor were special friends. They helped her in many ways to better the lives of black people. Mary Bethune was heartbroken when President Roosevelt died suddenly. Later, Eleanor Roosevelt gave her the president's walking cane. She always carried it with her as she grew older. That night, Mrs. Bethune looked handsome in a black velvet dress with flowers on her shoulders. Her speech was heard on the radio all over the country. How far she had come from the little girl who had walked 3 miles to learn to read. At last, Mrs. Bethune had to rest. For many years, she had been ill with asthma, but still, she kept on going for others. Now, she came home to Daytona Beach. On May 18, 1955, she died at almost 80 years of age. In her will, she wrote these words to black people everywhere. "I leave you love. I leave you hope. I leave you dignity." Boys and girls, I hope you have enjoyed the story of Mary McLeod Bethune. And I also hope that you enjoyed Mr. Jeff Warren, who sang so well for us. And at this time, I would like to say, may God bless you both each night and day, and those whom you love in every way. Poetry Just for You is seen on UA Columbia Cable Vision each Sunday at 10 a.m. on Channel 8. Bye-bye for now.
Alcohol burns in more ways than one. Excessive drinking burns American business to the tune of $54 billion a year. But often an employer can provide referral to alcoholism counselors when job performance slips. Employer intervention can save lives and careers and makes good business sense. This message is from the Will Rogers Institute, White Plains, New York.
Teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I like to hold it in my arms and keep it company. I like to see the world for once, all standing hand in hand, and hear them echoes through the hills for peace throughout the land. I like to build the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves. I like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I like to hold it in my arms and keep it.
Tuesday. It'll be fair on Tuesday. Increasing cloudiness.
One teddy bear for Angel. Thank you, Santa. I'll be waiting. Goodbye. See you later. Goodbye. See you soon, said Santa. Angel ran home to tell his brothers and sisters. I've just met Santa, and we must get ready for his arrival. Christmas magic is in the air. Hurry, let's trim the tree. Reindeer are coming very soon. I must get ready, you see. Santa said that he would bring toys and hugs for us. Mommy and Daddy have gifts to give, and we'll have a Merry Christmas. Santa's magic is in the air, magic we share with each other, as we exchange warm greetings, giving joy to one another. I always know when Santa is near, Christmas magic is in the air. There, said Angel, we've trimmed the tree. Look at the sugar plums, wooden soldiers, and tiny dolls from different lands. And now it's time to get ready for bed. Every teddy bear knows that 8 o'clock is bedtime. I brush my teeth after every meal. I slip into my bed at 8. I see my doctor regularly and eat everything on my plate. I bathe in bubbles till I shine. I exercise outdoors too, 'cause I want to stay healthy and always feel brand new. I'm so excited. I just can't wait to sleep. Mother comes in, and she gets ready to read them a poem. If you close your dream-filled eyes, then drift through clear blue skies, you'll see a land our teddy bear knows. It's where dreams are made before they visit you, then fade, like the wind that blows. The future awaits you there, happiness beaming everywhere, laughter, giggles, but never woes. Come, Teddy will lead the way. Meet all his friends, then stay. Teddy has stories for you. Ride on shooting stars and moonbeams, soar above Earth's hills and streams. Join Teddy and all your dreams. They are waiting too. The children fall asleep. They dream of toy soldiers, sugar plums, Russian and Arab and Chinese dolls, and each character performs a delightful little dance. Even the flowers begin to waltz. Wake up, said Angel. You must have had a delightful dream. Oh, yes, I met many different dolls from around the world. Merry Christmas, Angel. Merry Christmas, love. The children exchange their gifts. Let's see what Santa has left for us. Oh, wow, a teddy bear. And look at my doll. Mother whispers to them. A doll is someone you can hold very close and tell your secrets to. A doll is someone dear who can sit next to you just anywhere. A doll is simply your best friend, a friendship which will never end. A doll is company too. She'll help you play peekaboo. A doll will join you in a prayer as you ask God to bless those from whom you care. So may God bless you both each night and day, and those whom you love in every way. And may God bless you each night and day, and those whom you love in every way.